The good book says, take no part in the worthless deeds of evil and darkness. Instead, expose them. That's one sentiment we can all agree on. Welcome to Skeptic Haven. Let's go.
This is Skeptic Haven. Let's talk.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk, Skeptic Haven's premier call-in program. I am joined this week. First of all, I'm not Neil. Surprise! But I am joined this week by the lovely Patti from the Apostate Sisters. I am Ember from Better Than Ember. It's been a minute since I've been over here. It's been a minute since we chatted, Patti. How are you?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm good. Just getting ready for NanoCon coming up next weekend. But yeah, life's been pretty good given the circumstances, I guess. Thank you so much for coming in here at the last minute. And Neil, hope you feel better. And thanks to Wes and everybody for getting this all set up. Yeah, let's do
that. we stand Neil around these parts.
Yeah.
So it's been a minute since I've been on this show, and we did have to improvise last minute, and there were tech issues and all sorts of things. So bear with us, folks. Thank you all so much for joining us. Tonight, we were going to talk about deconversion. And if you have a deconversion story or a question, or you just want to tell us we're going to burn in hell, there's a number right up at the top of the screen. Give us a ring. Let us know what you think. It'll be fun. But in the meantime, for anybody who hasn't seen you before, because I believe you've only been on Skeptic Haven once on a Women Atheists Unload, right. Who are you? What do you do? Where can people find you? So forth.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am one half of the Apostate Sisters. I produce the channel, and my sister Nancy co-hosts with me, and we are actual biological sisters. We grew up in the Worldwide Church of God, which a few years ago, we were Googling the cult, the church we grew up in, and Wikipedia told us it was a cult, which was super surprising to both of us. And it has sort of changed the trajectory of how we have thought about our past. And so we've been deconstructing our upbringing in the cult and kind of deconstructing a whole bunch about the world, given what we can see about how our cult leader manipulated us with fear. So those are the things we talk about. We get people's stories. Sometimes we do live shows where we have anatomical props that we like to flash on screen. And we generally try to have a good time and use our laughter and our fun as a way to heal from indoctrination.
Hell yeah. And, yeah. I mean, I don't have to tell you, but for the purposes of people who aren't familiar, I often drop by the premieres, the live streams, etc., because it's a fun environment. It's an affirming environment, right? Like there's two main policies. Humans deserve human rights, and people have the right to bodily autonomy.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And we love to see it. I mean, that's like the humanism half of secular humanism.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like I'm not the kind of person, and really I don't think Nancy is either, that we're going to sit and get into some big philosophical, scholarly debate about something. But when you want to talk about how being raised in a high control group affects you on the inside, like gives you all kinds of trauma and triggers, and how that can affect you in ways you don't even imagine years later, we're your gals. And all of that is so important for people being themselves and being fully themselves, right? Anybody, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much that gets in the way of a person being fully themselves, and religious trauma makes up a huge part of it. And it's really cool the way you guys share your experiences with other people who've been in other high control situations. And there's a lot that people can relate to, not even in religious situations, but everyday social circumstances, because in some ways our culture is high control. But there's a
Exactly. And
lot.
I
Yeah.
think the biggest thing that has popped out to us about this is, I mean, even if you just look at etymology, right? Like culture, like there's a reason that we can see these like controlling things happening in society around us. And I think that type of thing is best served when people are empowered to be fully themselves and supported in having all of their needs met. Because as soon as we're in a place where our emotional needs aren't being met, or our emotions are used to make us fear that our physical needs won't be met, like they've got us. They can, well, like if it's, your private parts, like those are the things that you can be dragged around by when there is control over those things. For example, we were talking with Dr. Daryl Ray pretty recently, and he had a lot to say, of course, about our religious sexuality. So there's so many people that might deconstruct from a faith and not really follow it, and then decide that like they've been following this pattern in their sexual life that really still had to do with the religion and wasn't following their own self and their own desires. And so there are so many layers to what we would call deconstruction. It's not just like, maybe that Bible stuff isn't real. There's a lot to it.
For sure. It's wild. And that's why so many of us do the activism we do, because it's
Absolutely.
not just about getting pseudoscience the hell out of classrooms so kids can grow up learning actual facts and maybe succeed in the world. It's so that the adults can live their damn lives.
Right? I know. I mean, it just makes me sad to think of how many people are kind of in a box still with the way they were told they were supposed to be in every kind of way. I mean, not just for trans people, but obviously it's so easy to see how for trans people there was this box that they were trying to be shoved into, and it wasn't good for them. And shouldn't we be making life and the world better for every person that we can? Because when the world is better for more people, the world is better for all of us.
Mm-hmm. And that's what drives me nuts about the people who try to continue to enforce patriarchal cultural domination and control of every narrative and so forth, because they don't want things to be better for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They want it to be worse for some people. And I really have to wonder why,
I know. Yeah.
It's not from this.
Yeah, I guess I always go back to lizard brain stuff. I just feel like if people feel out of control themselves and like fearful of losing their most basic needs being met, they develop these ways that their brain decides to keep them safe, right? And if you get taught really young that being better than everybody else in your class is how you stay safe, you're going to find some pretty messed up ways to like be better than other people. It's all self-protective.
The special knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see how that would have an easier time taking root in a a younger person who hasn't emotionally matured. They're looking for a way to stand out from their peers, but also be protected from whatever might be bullies or other nonsense. Mm-hmm. And I mean, adults are prone to this delusion of grandeur business. We've got a well-known person who runs around saying he's the best ever at everything, even though he's demonstrably not very good at any of the things. And he's very famous for it, It's
It really is. It's an insecurity thing, really. I mean, I think there's probably a point when it goes beyond insecurity and there's like a full-on crack in the system. But in general, for people who experience those kinds of things and like do kind of crappy things to others, in their quest to soothe themselves to get their emotional needs met, like they're still feeling the pain of what they were taught when they were little,
Yeah, and that brings
Because
us back to the religious trauma.
I know. Well, and all oppressions are connected, and I think that's important to remember too, because they all stem from that same thing. And so if we feel oppressed about something, like, in theory, that should take us to a place of being able to see the oppressions on others and go, well, I don't like how I'm put in a box that way, so they probably really don't like how they're being put in a box. Like, these are things that I think humans can do a lot better at. And I don't know exactly the way to do that, but I do think that we make life better for each other one-on-one. Like, true human connections with each other is how we dig ourselves out of that hole.
I agree. I mean, everything is intersectional. Everything we do is
Yes.
intersectional. Like we've seen the crackdowns on trans people in certain areas of life, and every single one of them hurts cis people more than the trans people they're allegedly targeting.
Right.
Helping trans people helps everyone. Trans medicine
Exactly.
helps cis medicine. They're connected. And conversely, or that's the wrong word, relatedly, when we help other groups, like when we put money into urban communities to increase education, increase opportunities, give people the ability to go to freaking college, crime rates plummet.
Yes.
It's good for everyone.
Yep. Abortion's good for everyone. When women have that choice, babies that were going to have it pretty rough in life didn't come into the world. And we saw the crime rates drop in the 90s. We know that happened, And so, yeah, it's really hard to try to wrap your head around why these crackdowns, why more oppression seems to be the answer. Like, I don't, as a humanist, I can't actually wrap my mind around it other than to say these people who are clearly broken, insecure, lacked all kinds of emotional needs, and were raised on fear, are seeking control to soothe themselves. And that's as close as I can come to understanding it.
Yeah, it's difficult. All my life, I've tried to see the other side of the argument so I can understand things.
Yeah.
Like the abortion debate. I was a debater in high school on the debate team and all that stuff. And I would get either side of any given argument, death penalty, military involvement in the Middle East, all. So I'd have to argue both sides of it. Abortion, I had a little bit of trouble with, but I did eventually get there. It's the two sides are talking past each other. At least the people on the ground, the people who are pulling the strings are doing it to distract and divide.
Yes.
And so I look at other culture war issues a similar way. Even when I don't understand where the hell the other side is coming from, I still see those strings going up to the puppet masters they don't care. They're just trying to divide us, so we're not looking at them. That's my
true.
Conspiracy theory take on it.
Oh, no. I mean, I'm here for that. I've long said there's a whole game being played to call this left and right a thing so that we're looking this way instead of joining together and looking up, which is what we need to do.
Absolutely. But if you want to convince us that the patriarchy is actually beneficial and we're just silly people, then, call in. Tell us so. We want to talk to you. Also, if you have questions, comments, fashion advice, whatever you got, we're here for the next little over an hour for you, to be a resource for you, to entertain, to and also to raise money for Skeptic Haven. Skeptic Haven is a nonprofit organization, and you can support the work these folks do here. There's producers, there's technology, there's web client services. This call-in number isn't free. You can join the Patreon. You can join YouTube. You can send super chats after you're watching after the video. You can do super thanks. There's a bunch of ways to help out. But even for free, you can help out. You can participate in spreading the word of skepticism far and wide with the share button or even the like button, because the like button tells YouTube, show this to a few more people. And every push of that like button shows it to a few more people. Correct, right? And if you want to see more stuff like this, plus all the other shows that come across here on Skeptic Haven, there's 30 and 60 and Women Atheists Unload when we can get the gang back together on Saturdays. There's the Sunny Spot from time to time, Black Free Thinkers. And of course, Let's Talk on Sunday nights. Ring the bell so you don't miss any of the wonderful programming.
That's right. Because us skeptics and humanists, we need a place to talk about the real shit, guys.
It's true. I mean, a lot of the people who come through here have our own channels, right? Like, you have a channel. I'm all over the damn place. I pop up here and there. My main channel is Better Than Ember, but you can also catch me on the Transpositions on Thursdays doing the good news, because we all need more good news and other assorted stuff. It's life is lifey sometimes. That's true for, virtually everyone that you see on this channel. They either have a channel or they do other things. My co-host on 30 and 60, Cynthia McDonald, is very, very active in Black non-believers and appears in a bunch of other places. She was just on Truth Wanted, an ACA show the other day. We're all busy people. We all get around, but we all come here because this is the Haven. See how I did that?
That's smooth, nicely right? Done. So smooth. That's right.
If you could make one change to our current society, just what you could wish, just magically make it happen, what thing would you choose to change?
Everyone fully embracing ideas around emotional intelligence. Because I think that
make people
goes into
a little wiser, a little more empathic and intuitive. Oh my goodness, getting empathy up there. Now that raises an interesting discussion I've had with a few people on and offline. Everybody has a certain baseline level of empathy, right? And it comes in tiers. Like you have a great amount of empathy and compassion for your family members and your close friends and so forth, and then your neighbors, and then people who live in the same general area as you or share some other characteristic with you, and then eventually you work your way out to humanity or all living things, whatever the case may be. Going beyond that is morally virtuous, but some would argue it's also a privilege. It's an exercise of privilege, because even though we might expect it, we might say, well, if you want to be a good person, you have to, be a good person. But someone who's suffering under a tremendous social load, under stress, under strain, they don't know where their next meal is coming from, caring about what happens on the other side of the planet is just too far a reach, right?
I totally agree with you. Yep. Right. So the other choice could be feeding everyone. And, that puts people in a better place to engage in the society in which they live as well.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I like the empathy. I wasn't poo-pooing your answer.
I mean, yeah.
Tori is correct, yes.
We're silly humans.
We're dreamers. We believe we can build a better tomorrow. But despite the problem of induction, we have good reason to think so, because we've seen prior generations successfully build a better tomorrow that led us to today. We know it can be done. We just got to do our part.
Right. Right. And I think I have a good friend who says that Americans tend to behave like a conquered province. He references Vichy France when, what was it? The 1930s Germany folks rolled in. But the idea that it's like we've sort of been conditioned to just be like, okay, whatever you're going to do, like in Europe and other parts of the world, when there's policies or laws passed that people aren't okay with, They get their asses in the street en masse, and they know that they are all out there together to demand what they want of their government. Like, our country, like, we're being divided, but on the things that matter, we're not actually as divided as we're told we are. Like, the things we actually want for ourselves and for each other are good things, you know? So I don't like the idea that we are so easy to steamroll, and I dislike how that happened. I don't know exactly how that happened, but I think about how our country was sort of based on all these people who were, I'm imagining the MAGAs of oh, sorry, I don't know if that's going too political, but like imagining that like there was people who were holding on to religious ideas in Europe when the Enlightenment was happening, and they wanted to hold on to that, and so they escaped Europe to come here for religious freedom. And so I'm like, so was that like, the Puritans and everybody was the fundamentalists of Europe at the time, and so we're like still spinning on that fundamentalist energy? I don't know. These are the weird things that happen in my head when I'm trying to figure out how to fix the world.
Thing that's been bugging me since I was in high school, because I've been noticing I'm an autism spectrum person, and so a lot of human behavior doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I've been paying close attention since I was very, very small, so that I can, mimic it and like fit in or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed there's like this Puritan streak in American culture. They're like, oh, we're land of the free, we're liberated. But Americans are such prudes, giant babies about public nudity, people losing their shit if someone is breastfeeding in public. My goodness, it's crazy. So yeah, big Puritan streak. So in high school, I'm learning about history. And in the AP history program, whatever, there's all this talk about how the Puritans came to America for religious freedom because, America, the land of religious freedom. They came for the opposite reason. The Puritans were driven out of England because they believed a different brand of the Anglicans were taking over, some nonsense like that. And so they settled in Amsterdam, where they have actual religious freedom. And that was fine until the Pilgrims started having kids, and the kids were growing up in a secular, pluralistic culture and saying, hey, these fundamentalist views make no fucking sense. Why are we living this way? And the Puritans said, oh shit, we're going to lose our entire system of patriarchal control. We got to get out of here. So they came to America to be free from freedom, so they could oppress their children harder.
Goodness. Yikes. Thanks for that layer. What the heck? No. Yeah. Okay. So we talk on our channel a lot about breaking chains. And I talk about like the Bible has like, generational curses and the action of so-and-so will carry for 5 fucking generations down and all of that stuff. Well, I mean, we know that's nonsense, but I kind of want to just like have a little bit of honoring of the humans in that situation to recognize that they were seeing something real. They were seeing how terrible things would happen over and over and over in families. Well, yeah, that's because it was trauma that we were passing down. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to talk to people about their deconversion stories, because they are breaking those curses, those chains. They are making something better for the next generation, for whatever branches off of them, and that brings me back to the idea that we only change, like as a society, person to person, like change just doesn't like arise out of nowhere. It's us interacting with each other and treating each other well and giving new ideas to each other and supporting them so that they don't have to repeat the nonsense that their parents did. That's how we break generational curses.
We're the natural selection in the cultural evolution.
Yes. Exactly. And why is like it doesn't have to be artificial in that case. Like it's us. We are animals. We're part of this planet too. So yeah, those things that we do, that's natural selection. Look at us go.
Yeah.
I think humans are the worst and also so wonderful and beautiful and complex and messy.
I'm reminded of that trope about the school teacher who's like, you got an A, but I'm still disappointed because you could have done so much better. You have so much potential.
Right. Exactly. I know.
That's human. Like, look at all the cool shit. We built a freaking internet. We're talking across a continent in real time. And you can talk to us too. Call in, number right up there. But it's amazing the shit that, and this is just one point in history. We're not even done yet. The shit that's coming, oh my goodness. I want to live another 200 years to see what happens.
I
but
know.
we could be doing so much better if we stop deliberately trying to fuck over each other.
Yes, but it's our, electricity and hormones that we call emotions. And it fires off at our primordial issues. And so I don't know, that's like a whole other thing to wrangle. But there's lots of ways we're figuring it out where we can help each other through traumas old and new.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think about the Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high situation? Because like, it seems like the people who are willing to go low, the people who are willing to lie, cheat, steal, manipulate, and use brute force when necessary to get their way, have an insurmountable advantage. We're holding back from violence, from lying about them back, from calling people names, from, being big chest beating, debate bro, shotgun wielding, all the things, because we are trying to, we have integrity. We're trying to set an example for a better way to be a human. But does that disadvantage us to such a degree that our loss becomes inevitable? Do you think?
Gosh, I don't want to think that's true. But there's thoughts of, like there's so many of us, right? If we're talking the people who control things at the top versus the rest of us, like objectively, we have more people that could surmount that, in my opinion. And I think the evidence of that is right in how politics are being run, like how our emotions are being used in divided ways against each other. I mean, the fact that they're working so hard to divide us, to get us on opposite sides of things, to misdirect us everywhere, tells me they're fucking scared because they know that we could overtake things. And they know we're waking up to it. That's my like overly hopeful way of thinking about it. That they wouldn't be working so hard to divide us if they really thought they had the power. What do you think about that?
Mm-hmm. I tend to agree. It makes me think, just because I spend so much time in trans news, of the transphobes in Britain, right? Like every time they win some minor victory, like they got that Law Lords decision a few weeks ago, they hold a big celebration, and there's like 10 of them. There's more reporters covering them than there are them. Like they make this big show about how they're this huge, overwhelming majority, but when you actually see, there's like 10 of them. And it's almost hilarious, but that's part of the manipulation. They're trying to convince you they're the silent majority or whatever. But when you strip away all the facades and all the camera angles and the PR and the AI video and all the nonsense, it's just a handful of people. It's like the cast of Fox News plus 12, it just, there's not actually that many of them. People get this idea, partly because of the election results, that good people are in the minority in the United States and to some extent around the world. But the people who voted against human rights aren't the majority. They're maybe 30% of the total population. The vast majority of the population didn't even vote. So we don't
Right.
have to convince this loud, aggressive, hostile minority, although I think we can, because there's a reason they're like that. It goes back to, empathy being a privilege, a luxury that you need to
Mm,
have. The reason they focus so much on cruelty is because they themselves are suffering. If we can alleviate the
yeah.
suffering, many of them will stop being evil. Maybe, I hope.
Hmm.
But we don't even have to convince them. We just have to get that group, that huge group that doesn't even participate, involved. And
Yeah.
when they see the difference in how life can be versus how life has become, it almost does our work for us.
Oh,
But
yeah.
we can't abdicate our responsibility, because if we let the red hats drive the narrative, they will keep driving forever.
That's true. That's true. Well, and I would say of those that voted that direction or that voted against human rights, as you say, I would imagine that most of them, if we talked to them for a few hours, we would think they were really good people. And probably their votes, they thought they were good. They had their reasons. And I think there's a whole lot of games being played with, like buzzwords and the emotions. Sorry, I keep going back to emotions, but to me that's what we are, just like balls of emotion. Like there's buzzwords and catchphrases, and they build in this emotional trigger, emotional reaction to it, and then they use it over and over, and they just get people on board onto their team with that. And I really appreciate that you keep bringing it back to the privilege, because that's absolutely right. Like the privilege to have freedom of thought, the freedom or the privilege to have always had enough food in your belly, the privilege to go to schools that open your eyes to the world, the privilege to travel and see how things work around the country and around the world. Like that stuff is huge. And it does make such a difference in how we show up in the world and how we show up for other people when we've had those experiences. So like to be a privileged person and to think, I don't want other people to have what I've had, is so yucky and so indicative of their traumas, that they were taught to hold everything and hoard it because that makes you safe and good. I don't know. I want to give everything to everybody. Yeah. And I get some pushback on the channel. People are like, yeah, what was it the other night? Somebody was saying that my hope in humanity balances out their complete pessimism on humanity. And I'm like, that's okay. That's okay. We're all going to show up exactly where we landed because of all the things in our life that brought us to now. And so like right now, let's all look each other in the face and be like, we can do this, guys. We can do this. We can talk to other people. We can build mutual aid systems. We can make sure our food banks don't go empty in this time. Like there are so many things happening to people who are not privileged in our country right now that this has to be us. We have to step up, if we have any privilege at all, to make sure that those systems that keep those people safe enough and fed are funded, are filled, all of that. Like it's not going to come from the top. It's not a savior. It's not the people running things. It's us. It has to be us. Because if you lift from the bottom, everybody rises.
Yeah, it's a really important perspective, because that's another reason that religion is so instrumental as this mechanism of control, because it contains the central idea of you can't help yourself. You need a savior. You have to rely on a power from on high. And it's just not true. There isn't help coming from above. It's just us.
Yeah.
And also, you can save yourself. Depending on, metaphorically, like if you need open heart surgery, you're going to need a doctor. I
That's
can't
okay.
advise doing that yourself. But like in the greater scheme of things, you can make your own life better. You can take steps. You don't need the approval of
Right.
your pastor or the little old lady who steals from the collection plate or whatever. You could just do it.
Right. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, that's worth talking about too, the idea that like we do need each other, and I think that part can be easy for those of us who have come out of high control environments to want to skip over a little bit. I know for myself, like I went through enough toxic groups that I'm like, I can hardly be a part of an official group or like regular meetings. Just like, I have so many icks come up about that because groups are scary, right? And if you've deconstructed from high control, you're like, I don't want to go back there, and so that can make us be self-reliant in a way that like goes places it shouldn't, places where like it's important that we do have people who care about us, that we know that that we could call for resources if we need it. And that's so hard to come by because we've all kind of been siloed, even going to like a mutual aid sort of model, like thinking about that. I remember realizing maybe like 15 years ago that tool libraries were a thing. And I was like, what? Why are we not doing this everywhere? Like, why does half the houses on a block own a table saw that they use maybe every 3 years on average, when there could be a tool library where we share it, and that's just not the way we're set up. We're set up to all want our own thing, got to do it on my time. And it's like we've taken out the fact that we're a social species and we've tried to squash that.
Yeah, that was one of the original reasons that we started forming tribes and clans and small communities in the first place, was to share resources, because that increased the survivability of the whole group. And here we are, like, yay capitalism, I need to have my own of everything, and it's so unnecessary. People with these tiny little yards who have their own giant riding lawnmowers, it's like, why though? Why?
Okay, but isn't
You
that a
don't
little
even
bit like
mowing your yard?
Isn't it a little bit like
It's a
sugar?
hassle.
Sorry, I cut you off there, but it makes me think about sugar. Okay, stick with me here. So the reason we like sugar is because in the wild, sweet things have a much better chance of being safe for us, not poisonous, right? And so this is why we like sugar appeals to us so much and hits our dopamine receptors, because our body's like, woohoo, calories that are probably not going to kill me. This is great. Like, we're talking lizard stuff, right? This is old stuff. But then it's like it can be taken too far to where now our sugar heavy diets sell very well because it's hijacking that safety mechanism that we have to look for the sweet things. Right. And so I kind of think it's a little bit the same of like being safe and having enough of our own supplies and all of that, to the point that we overdo that and like miss the fact that we could share stuff. So it's like our very natural biological processes are so easily hijacked to like for power reasons. Right.
Yeah, I the way you describe that brings me back to trauma responses, because there's always a situation where people go through something and they need help, and there just isn't help there, whether the mechanism isn't available or the people in charge of it don't care or don't think your issue is important, or whatever the situation is. And it isn't so much the event itself, it's the lack of people helping that creates the scar that makes it traumatic. And then you, the rest of your life, you're carrying around this worry of, what if I have to face the next thing alone too? I need all the resources just so I can survive.
Yes. Yeah, I have wondered too if the way that we are with our hoarding of resources came from, like perhaps in the past, Earth was much more hospitable to our longtime ancestors, and there came a time of climate change or something that changed all of that, and all of a sudden there was lack. And I just feel like that had the potential, if something like that happened, to deeply, deeply scar us in a way that has carried forward to this day. I can't say that that's 100% true, but I feel like that happens even on a family level, you know, like families that go through money loss, or, you know, like there will be scars that decide things for those people for the rest of their lives because they experience that. That's so real.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure everybody can relate to that. You know, one of the issues that I've publicly been dealing with is that it's very hard for me to ask for help because for much of my life, there wasn't help. You know,
Yeah,
you get used to having to deal with things on your own.
that's true.
And breaking out of that, it's not just hard habitually, but it's scary too. Because what if people tell you to go to hell? You know? And then you take somebody that you liked and now what, you can't like them? Like it's a big emotional mess because we are big
Right.
meatballs of emotions.
Absolutely. Oh, I know. I just want to like give the little kid inside of everybody a hug, you know, and let them know it's
Yeah.
that they can be okay. But yeah, wow, we have a long way to go as humans for sure. I've had, for no good reason, I've long held the idea it's going to take us about 500 years to figure out our shit. That's just
It's a
my
prophecy.
there you go. Let's go with that. Somebody write it down. Or
And
maybe
it
the
came to
aliens
pass.
one day will I know, one day the aliens will find this on a server somewhere in ones and zeros and be like, look, it was the prophetess. She knew.
Shortly
That's right.
before the Third World War.
Oh no, Ember.
I couldn't resist.
You
It's
know,
it seems inevitable though, doesn't it? Like, I know people have been saying it since, like, the 1950s or whenever the hell the Rosenbergs did their thing, suddenly the USSR had nukes too. People are like, "Oh, it's the end of the world for sure," which may have something to do with how the end of the world cults started to really get a stranglehold on things.
oh, I think
Maybe
so. Yes.
the
Well, for
timing's
sure.
awfully weird.
I know, right? Well, I mean, in our cult, Herbert W. Armstrong, he didn't shy away from taking, you know, images of mushroom clouds and putting it right on the front of his Plain Truth magazine. You know, like he knew exactly what he was doing, and so yeah, our invention of that type of bomb sure wasn't a great choice for us. But in some ways, I don't know. I this is my over positivity about humans. I just think so few humans actually want to see a world war, actually want to see nuclear detonations anymore. You know, like I think that the taste for war doesn't exist as much in the American population now, which is why I think we're seeing warring activities happening in ways that are trying to like, no, we're not doing war. What are you talking about? It was just a little thing. It wasn't a full war. You know, it's almost like they're trying to pretend that's not happening because it's understood that we're kind of not for it. I don't know. I guess I feel like the difference between what I understand about World War II and how it seemed like everybody was excited and celebratory and like we're going to make the world better, and then fast forward to Vietnam and like there was a much different reaction, right? Like protesting and all kinds of things. And maybe that's just how history has been represented to me, and I'm not seeing the full picture, and that's certainly likely, but to me it's indicating a shift in how people actually want to see their world lived. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe. I see things from a slightly different lens.
That's
Going
fine.
back to that AP history course in high
Yeah.
school. And in fact, I have, coincidentally, right in front of me, some very, very old history books that were written just after the Civil War that have military data going all the way back to the age of the colonies and whatnot. And it seems as though Americans, by some weird coincidence, seem to get into a major conflict roughly every 20 years.
Hmm.
With World War II, it was a little bit different. It was time for the next conflict anyway. The clock from World War I had just about run out. And then Japan attacked. And then nothing unites Americans like being attacked. Now there's a common enemy who has made their ill intention known. And so we rise up and we unite and we're going to go smash them. And for some reason, we went after Germany, which is valid because they were doing horrible things and needed to be stopped. But they didn't actually attack. Not important. The point is Americans were feeling righteous fury. So they were invested in that conflict.
Right.
Vietnam, not so much. There was kind of a low grade, I guess we got to stop the commies from the extreme right. They didn't really want to do it. And everybody else really didn't want to do it.
That's fair. That's fair. See, there it's me just putting in positive thinking that us humans are just working our way out of that warring nature.
I wish, and maybe you're right. Maybe I just have a cynical perspective.
Hey, this is why we're talking about it.
Yeah. Well, it seems like there's branches of humanity. And this is how evolution works. It's the change in the allele frequencies in a population over time. And this is true of genes, but it's also true of memes, cultural DNA. And as we exchange ideas and they flow around the culture and they mix and mingle, sometimes the humans can have a better nature if we want to. Ideas are waxing. They're increasing in the population. Maybe not enough to totally drive things over, but there's still enough mingling that we're not speciating into two completely separate and incompatible groups. But there's also those warhawk ideas that come from trauma and fear and control from above that make people think in group, out group, you're going to get left behind and all of that nonsense. And those ideas spread around and sometimes they're waxing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the scales shift, the pendulum swings, as they put it.
Right. Yeah. And it's an interest. I feel like that conversation gets a lot more interesting when we don't have a church view of good and bad anymore, because it brings us. Code. Yeah. Right. And it was a few years ago, I guess, that I was like, good and bad. I should stop using those words, because they're not that helpful in most cases. Right.
Well,
there's generally more to say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because what's good for one person often will be good for other people, but not necessarily. An example that a lot of right wingers use is disabled parking spaces. Having a disabled parking space is great for a disabled person, but it's less great for the person who now has to park 10 feet further away and walk that whole 10 feet. Oh no. But it's an example to use. You can't give something good to someone without also costing someone else the tiniest little inconvenience. To them, it's a zero-sum game. And in certain specific examples, you can make that case. It's not a great case, but you can make that case. So we have to clarify what is good in a given context and with regards to which priorities we're emphasizing. Is it the good of all humans? Is it, and this is one area where liberals fall down. See, I'm going to both sides this shit right now.
Do it.
Is liberals tend to put the emphasis on the good of the many, even at the expense of the good of the few. And that can push people the other way. They're like, oh, I'm getting screwed over so that most people can benefit. It's action. It's three wolves and a sheep deciding who's for dinner. And people feel alienated by that,
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up the accessible parking spaces, because I did a little bit of work in UX design, interface type stuff. I didn't get real far in it, but what that is all about is making, our devices, our apps and things work better for everybody. And so they have a huge focus on accessibility and accessibility tools within there. And so what they've discovered over and over with accessibility tools on these apps is that something that someone needs because of, only having one arm, or having difficult eyesight, or not being able to, or, like being dyslexic or whatever, all these things. When the tools get updated to help those people with those things, it actually ends up leading to tools that everyone finds benefit in, like more often than not, And so, yeah, to be against things being accessible is such bullshit. Like, yes, there's the example of, okay, now you have to walk across the parking lot, you able-bodied person that should be able to do that. But the flip side is we get to make a better world for everybody because we thought about those that had a difficulty, like, we make the world better when we take care of everybody, and it's just a fucking fact. And so, like, shout it from the rooftops,
Yeah, I completely agree. It makes me think the way you described it. Maybe it's the prosthetics part. It makes me think of medicine generally. Like so many things we've discovered in medicine, we're trying to help one person with a certain kind of condition. And sometimes we succeed and sometimes the results are meh. But along the way, we discover, hey, this drug lowers blood pressure. We can give it to these people and make their lives better. Or, this drug for blood pressure also, like Benadryl, for example, right? It was originally designed to be a sleeping pill. And it does that in a lot of people. It makes people kind of sleepy. But we discovered it also has an antihistamine effect. And now it's the world's #1 allergy reducer thing, and it improves. It's, you're not going to die from allergy. Well, you may die from allergies. Anaphylactic shock is no joke, but like a little bit of hay fever, it's not going to kill you. But not having that hay fever drastically increases your quality of life, like hugely, for weeks at a time.
No kidding. I mean, I would love to see that be our currency. How you achieve status, and how you achieve status in society by making the world better for as many more people as you possibly can. Those are the heroes, man.
That's an idea.
Right.
Like set up it'd be arbitrary at first, but we could refine the system as we go, like assigning points. The Cub Scout who walks a little old lady across the street, 1 point. Cool. You're doing better off than the red hat who lives in his basement and calls brown people names on the internet all day. But the person who like invents a new kind of prosthetic that like self-fits and fuses to the neurons or whatever, that anybody can just plug and play hardware for human bodies. For example, that person gets 1,000 points, and all of a sudden, hey, you want to be state senator because you have the points to qualify,
Right. Like, sorry to all you sports ball people out there, but like, I would love to heap all the praise on the humanists doing the good humanist work more than the quarterback that threw a bunch of touchdowns.
It drove me so freaking crazy. That's another yay capitalism. Now, don't get me wrong. I was involved in all the sports. Well, all the sports I had time for. I never bothered with American football because it's silly and you wear the body armor and you never really like. You play for 4 seconds and then stand around for 2 minutes. It's not my idea of a game that's fun to play. And a similar thing with wrestling. I've changed my views on wrestling over the years, but when I was in high school, I was like, nah, I'd rather run. I want to be on the track team. I want to play soccer. I want to do those sorts of things. Well, I do get sports, but the supremacy of sports in our culture, it's bred in circuses. It's pure capitalism. It's we got to sell commercials. It's care about this to take your mind off how bad your life is, because the same people paying those folks $1 million a game are doing their level best to screw you over. Like, my goodness, it drives me batty. But what really upset me was I was also on the Science Olympiad team. And for anybody who doesn't know, Science Olympiad it's what it sounds like. It's a competition in science-related ways. And that year, my local team made it to the state level competitions. You win locally, then you win regionally, then you go to states. And if you win at states, you go to nationals, and it's fantastic. So we got to states for like the first time ever, I believe. And we had to come up with $100,000 to pay for our own buses. Meanwhile, the football team that hadn't won a game, well, not a game, but hadn't like done well as a team in over a decade, over $1 million in the school budget just for their busing. Like, we're a winning team and they're not, but also we're actually related to schooling instead of just a sideshow. And so it really pissed me off. And so I've carried like this sports bias with me my whole life, despite being an athlete myself, you know?
I think that's fair. Yeah. I mean, priorities.
It's like, what are the goals here? And the school district made no bones about it. And you'll see it in many other schools too. Like a lot of colleges, they're not colleges. They're sports franchises with a homework program, like as a side hustle.
My goodness.
You know? And it's true. Like I live near Syracuse, New York, and Syracuse's entire economy is geared, it orbits around the axis of orange sports. Like the basketball team, the football team, sometimes the wrestling team, but like the teams. And the school, it's a great school. They're not Ivy League, but they're up there. But it's an afterthought compared to the sports, you know?
Right. Well, I feel like sport does have a place in human societies, right? If we look back to like the Incas and the Mayans and things, like they had some games. We have evidence of the games they played. But I don't think they did what we do with it, you know? So it was filling some sort of need for them, like human need. And it can be a good thing.
Humans love to play. I mean, it's part of our nature. We're playful. We like to engage with each other. But also, like you mentioned, I live in an area that it was Haudenosaunee or Iroquois, if you're, you know, European, which I am, but I like to call them by their name. They played what we call lacrosse. I forget their name for it. Instead of going to war, like this is a culture over 4,000 years old that virtually never had a war. Like occasionally there'd be another tribe from somewhere else would try to bull into their territory and they'd have to like fight it out. But within the Confederacy, thousands of years with no war because they did a sports ball instead. When there was a conflict, that's what they did. And the same thing developed in Europe. That's what the Olympics were for. You send your champions to do battle against each other to show who's the strongest without actually killing thousands of people.
Right.
There's a valid use for it.
And stuff like that gives me more hope in humanity. Like we have the capability. We do. We're not just assholes for the sake of being assholes forever and always.
I mean, you know, it's just, there's so much we could do. So much, like comedy. Let's take 1/10 of the money we put into sports ball and start promoting comedians. People love to laugh. It's just as good a distraction, but it also gets people thinking about things they might not have thought about, because that's what comedians do, is they make you look at things from a different angle, you know?
That's a very good point. I like that. I'm pro money for comedians. That sounds great.
Yeah. It's just one random example. I'd also like to see more public libraries with better funding. The libraries. The one thing the robber barons did right, Rockefeller dumped so much money into the public library system so they could be public.
Interesting. I don't honestly know much about Rockefeller, but you know, hearing stuff like that makes me be like, maybe not completely a terrible oligarch.
Well, you know, I mean, see, now I'm the hopeful one. But in actuality, of course, there's more to it. A lot of the I forget the term for it, philanthropy. The philanthropy he did was to get around taxes. Like he's like, if I give this money away, I'll be a hero to the people and also not have to give it to the government. So let's do that, you know?
I mean, if all the billionaires would like to spend billions upon billions to get that adoration, I'm here for it. Come on, y'all.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that's what I've been saying about Elon. I'm like, if this jerk, he has been a huge jerk. He's done unforgivable things. But even so, if he turned around right now and said, I'm going to put this vast amount of money into cancer research, into AIDS research, into, ending world hunger, like ending world, not just feed everyone who's hungry right now. He could do that with, the change out of his couch cushions, but like creating the sustainable programs to feed people long term.
Yes.
He'd be the hero he always wanted to be. People would literally worship him, and with good reason, because we want to lift people up who do shit like that, who make the world very much better.
Let's keep talking about that because, with climate change too, like our food system has to be very much entirely rethought, like I have long thought, sorry, this is probably like triggering and I'm open to new ideas to make me change my mind, but I really love the idea of starting to grow our food hydroponically and creating indoor ways of doing that because indoor spaces don't get wrecked by a really bad season of storms, and everybody gets fed. Like, I don't know. To me, I'm like, well, I'm also like, hey, lab grown meat. Let's figure it out, guys. I'm just like, let's feed everybody and let's not do it by spraying Monsanto over everything.
Yeah, Buckminster Fuller used to point out back in the 1970s that if we switched to a vertical farm system using hydroponics and other techniques and whatnot, basically in a contained greenhouse, we could put so much more agriculture on land, and it doesn't even have to be arable land. You can put it in the middle of the fucking desert because it's in a contained greenhouse,
Yeah.
It's wild. We could do so much more food-wise. And with the advances in automation that have happened over the last 55 years, you don't even need to have that many humans. Like, you don't need the humans to do it. You need the humans, a few humans, to be in charge of the robots that do it,
Yeah. And there's some humans that would love that job. That's the thing. I just think like the whole idea of like you have to go to school and do exactly this thing and you have to be well-rounded and la la la, like we're just missing the boat so hard on honoring humans. Like I love nerds. I love when people have a thing that they're just so absolutely into. Like, to me, the world needs a whole bunch of those. Like we stopped for a car battery, I think, once, and it was this all kinds of batteries place. And the guy who worked there, it was clear he loved batteries so much. Like he was wanting to talk about our make and model of the car and the different options and the things that might happen from each type of battery. And like, that's what we need. We're like pulled in so many directions to try to be this omni person when in fact we all fit together in a better way when we're all like so coming full circle, when we're all so completely, beautifully, fully, uniquely ourselves, because then we find the lock to our key,
And that's another one of the reasons we bothered with civilization in the first place, right? Like, by coming together and being like, okay, you 6 people are going to farm the crops so that these 5 people can go hunt the game and like defend off raiders. And we have 1 person left over who can learn how this whole doctoring thing works. And suddenly we've got medical care in our village, It's like, the point is to let people specialize in what they're good at, in what they're drawn to and care about. And that it's a huge resource. And we're wasting so much potential as a society by trying to force people into the corporate cogs and, push a button over and over. We often say, oh, we have to ban abortion. A child could cure cancer, whatever. That's not how that works. A person who's alive today could cure cancer if they weren't forced to work for minimum wage to just not die. If they were given the resources they need, if everyone were given the resources they need to explore their passions and their potential, we would be so much further along. Like, I often complain about the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, this great setback. You know, people say it slowed our progress. It actually pushed us backwards. You know, people talk about how we just rediscovered how to make Roman concrete that can last 1,000 years. We just figured it out a couple of years ago. It wasn't that long ago. We just rediscovered freaking plumbing. The Romans had plumbing people 2,000 years ago. We only got it back maybe 200 years ago.
Right.
It's not that long. We're still in that dark age because we're deliberately holding back the potential of people who could make gigantic leaps forward for fucking capitalism.
You're right.
Just so dumbasses who want to go to war with the chemtrails can be stupidly rich. Why? What are we doing?
Why?
What are we doing?
Yes. Why do you
Call
need
in,
enough
put
wealth?
me on.
I know. Why does anyone need enough wealth to like last
as I can
1,000?
to try to get
Yeah,
some
good. I know. I know. Somebody. What else? Racy things can we say to get somebody to fight us? Come on, you anti-humanists, call in.
Yeah. We're feisty up in here tonight. Yeah.
I was thinking more about you know, everybody needing each other, and if they're more fully themselves, they can really use their thing. I even have heard of this guy who's a mathematician whose brain works in a way that is unfathomable to almost everyone else, the things that he can solve in his head and comprehend. But what I have heard about him is, like, if he has a juice box or like a can of something, he needs to have someone else open it for him. Like, there's something about his brain that is so incredibly geared for the math that these physical things of opening a bottle, like, he kind of can't do it, you know? And so to me, that really drove home that lock and key idea of, like, if we empower other people to be their best self, like, we're going to have the best of them for all of us on the planet, you know? And if that mathematician hadn't had people around him, the privilege to be able to focus on the math, and had to, like, somehow muddle his way through doing the regular everyday parts of life, we might never have had his math skills, you know, that have gone on to help everybody.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to privilege, honestly. Like,
Absolutely.
Einstein, once in a generation level breakthroughs, but it only happened because he had the privilege to be able to sit around and think his thoughts about what about a train going at the speed of light, and had the mathematical ability to do it. Like, people have to have the ability to do these things. People talk about the great discoveries. And if you look back through history, not that long ago, like, we've started to get more middle-class people making breakthroughs. Like, you know, Bill Gates does microprocessor things and suddenly there's Microsoft. But not that long ago, it was only the rich assholes living in castles who ever made breakthroughs, because they're the only ones who could afford the time off to do it.
Exactly. And this is where our great white man history gets us in so much trouble, because whether it's scientific breakthroughs or like Paul Revere and the, you know, half mythological stories we build up around these great people of the past, like, it's not really true. Like, those things were everybody supporting those efforts, but their name gets attached to it because they were the wealthy, privileged person there. So,
yeah. I mean, Tycho Brahe, you know, for anybody who doesn't know, Tycho Brahe was a rich dude who built his own telescope because he was so rich, because he wanted to be one of the great scientists of his age. Like, he was contemporary with Kepler, right? And so he took this telescope. But he didn't just do the rich person thing and be like, look at my lovely giant telescope. I'm not compensating for anything, I promise. He used it. He learned how to use it. He took the most precise measurements of so many celestial bodies we'd ever had. That's how Kepler was able to do the math he did, was using Brahe's measurements. This dude
Okay.
made a fantastic contribution that moved science forward. But he was only able to do it because he was stupid rich.
Well, so then where's the line between the people who are stupid rich or even just privileged enough to like and like have the care to work on things that matter versus like, you know, people who grew up so overly wealthy that everything gets taken for granted and they're kind of like, you know, playboys in the world instead of doing anything of value, you know, like wouldn't that be a thing to dig into of like, is it like privilege, too much privilege? Is it other family ideals? Is it like, what goes into this? You know, I don't know the answer, but I sure would love to like dig into it and figure out how to make more better people.
Yeah, there's a few possibilities. I often think of Kim Stanley Robinson's Mars trilogy because there's some really great stuff in those books. It's for anybody who doesn't know, it's a sci-fi series that was written in the 90s, I want to say, about humans going to Mars and setting up the first colony, and eventually there's a communist revolution on Mars, and it's fantastic. And they're trying to set up this social system. How are we going to make a more equitable society? Understanding that it'll only be more equitable, and it'll be the problem of future generations to refine it and make it even better. We don't have to make it perfect. We just make it better. And so they're thinking about this. They're like, well, one of the big problems with Earth is this wealth hoarding that becomes generational. Like the wealth just never gets back into the populace. And then you have like these trust fund kids who more often than not just end up being international playboys. They like go build a city in the desert and stick the tallest skyscraper in it or whatever, while people in the next village over starve. It's disgusting when you think about it.
Yes.
But so they're on Mars and they're like, how do we prevent that from happening? And so they did a few interesting things. And the one that seems most germane to this generational wealth problem is they made an inheritance tax that's so ridiculously high that it becomes virtually impossible to pass wealth onto your offspring. And you don't have to. There's no resistance in their society because their society is set up in such a way that people don't starve. It's basically a hybrid of a communist and universal basic income model. Like anything that the state can provide, like water, air, electricity, the state just does it. And people use what they need because nobody's going to take more electricity than they need and hoard it. Stupid. Like, no, why? You'd have to put an extra effort to do something dumb. So they just provide whatever they can. Anything that you have to do on an individual level, like, you know, buying clothes, that you get a universal basic income kind of situation for. And it's fabulous. So nobody has to worry about starvation or the general basic needs of survival. And so you don't actually need that generational wealth to preserve the well-being of your own offspring because their survival needs are just met. Because they set up the society that way. And the fun thing about it is that as the author Kim Stanley Robinson describes it, every single component of this hypothetical economy that he set up in a sci-fi world, yes, fair, but every single component of it already exists and is in use on Earth.
Yes.
We could do it right now.
Exactly. We have enough. We have an abundance. Like I once a week or so, I go to a food bank distribution place. And I volunteer there, but it's not fully altruistic because I get to go home with a grocery cart full of food at the end. And it helps my family a ton. But that place feeds like 800 families and distributes to a bunch of food banks in the area, all based on stuff that otherwise would have been thrown out by stores and distribution centers. Like it's the garbage. It's the waste and we're extracting it and distributing it. Like, we do not have an abundance problem. We have a distribution and will problem, right? Like, if we decided we're all going to feed all of us, we could. We could do it right now. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that means,
Yeah,
so this organization is a little on the religious side. Not that they can't technically be, because they're a 401(c), but they definitely have that bent toward them. And so when I'm in there, I'm often talking about my radical ideas to the people I'm volunteering with that day. And as long as I don't use buzzwords or like names of political systems, people are fully on board with the things I'm saying. And so this is my new trick, is like, let's get around their triggers. Let's get around the buzzwords they've been conditioned into and just use words that tell them, hey, you're a human, I'm a human, we share this planet with a whole bunch of other humans. What if we do this in a way that works better for everybody? And people like that.
Yeah, it's a thing that people, at least, even if they don't necessarily do things that support that goal, they like to think of themselves as the kind of person who supports that kind of goal.
Right.
And I mean, deprogramming is a system of working around that kind of mental roadblock that's been installed for control purposes.
Absolutely.
And that brings us back to religion, doesn't it? Because it's all the levers of control in one very funny looking hat.
And all oppressions are connected. So there you have it.
All right. Well, thanks for coming to our TED Talk, folks.
I know. You and me, I think let's change the world, Ember. Let's do this. There's a whole bunch of other people that want to do this too.
I know there's so much that we all can do. Like, some of us are good at communicating, some of us not so much, but every single person has ideas that are worth sharing, worth spreading out into the zeitgeist. Take your memes, your cultural DNA, and spread the damn things, however works for you. Write a blog, write a Substack, create AI videos on TikTok, whatever. Do whatever, or just talk to people in the chats, but participate.
Right.
And offline too. Get out there, go protest, go vote, go stand up for the things you believe in. And I do mean that. I don't mean fight against the things you don't want to see, like a king or a theocracy, but fight for the things you do want to see. Because that's important too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've done activist work, like artist activism stuff, for some climate groups in town here. And at one point, I think I was sort of on the younger side for the Extinction Rebellion group in my city, because they do direct action, which is arrestable things. And so it seems to be fairly populated with folks who are retired, because they're no longer worried about, getting their career damaged by being arrested and that kind of thing. But they had me give a speech, I think, again, because I was on the younger side for their group. And that was my most important thing to say, is like, I didn't think of myself as an activist. Like, that has this feeling in our society, like that's a special thing, or you have to have special knowledge. And it's just not true.
Those terms. It's like virtue signal. Oh, don't virtue signal. Oh no, don't wave your little flaggy and show that you're accepting of humans or whatever.
But in fact, we need everyone, and whatever you're good at, that's what's needed. It's exactly as you say. Whatever it is that you're wanting to bring to the party, that you want to see, like, great, fucking do it. Show up and just keep showing up.
Be a pain in the ass.
That's right.
With a smile.
And maybe an umbrella.
A polite pain in the ass.
I'm starting to promote this umbrella-based protest idea that I'll continue to bring more out on that. But it's something simple that anyone can do, and you can do it even if you're afraid.
Hell yeah. Yeah, there's lots of things we can do. We can hang posters. Some people enjoy door knocking. You get your steps in that way, I suppose. There's a lot. You don't even have to talk to people.
Right.
But there's always things everybody can do.
We need all of us.
But also, if you're feeling feisty, if you're feeling revved up and you think, you know what, I don't want to be a host on the internet. I want to get in front of those town halls. I want to have a debate with those assholes that just took funding away from school children. I want to show that they're just the worst. Do it. Run for office. Primary the buggers.
That's right.
Get involved. Even if you lose, you're going to make them confront the ideas. And that
Yes.
helps.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
I don't know
Lady
if I've
Patty,
mentioned it. Oh, sorry. We at the end? Okay.
The time has been moving along on us, and
Aw.
it's been lovely. It's been a hell of a conversation, and I hope both entertaining and enlightening to our audience. But we got to get out of here pretty quick here. So before we go, would you refresh everyone on where to find you and what you do and all those things?
Yes, indeed. I am Patti. I'm one half of the Apostate Sisters. I do the show with my sister Nancy, and we can be found on YouTube, usually Friday nights at 8 p.m. Central, and sometimes Tuesday afternoons. We have something fresh and new for our listeners, and we talk about deconstructing from our cult, and we hold space for those who've walked away from their faith.
Hell yeah. And you know, it's a great thing to do too. It's just holding space for people and let them know everyone's welcome here. As long as you're in good shape.
Yeah.
Trolls, kick it the hell out. And I am a member of Better Than Ember here on YouTube. I do a bunch of other stuff. My links are all on betterthanember.com. But before we go, because this is an official Skeptic Haven production, we have to thank our supporters. We do, because we appreciate them. They make shows like this possible so that we can all hang out together and explore these ideas and sometimes take calls. Who knows? So from Patreon, we want to thank Paul Cammish, Karen Butcher, Logan Fisher, Amanda McLeod, Rion, D. Murphy, Dan D., Michael Wiseman, Sonny Shell, and Phil Calderone. And also, in case you forgot, you could be a channel member. And we have a few of those, including Cynthia McDonald, Callie Laughlin, Logan Fisher, and Tons of Mice. You too can join them and get your name read off on the air, however you prefer. Honestly, Patreon, a little bit more goes to the organization. YouTube takes less, but however you want to do it, whatever's the easiest way to do it. And also, you don't have to spend money. It helps a lot. Appreciate the shot. It's the best. But you could also press the like button. You can press the share button. You can press the subscribe button. And we hope you do, because then you can come hang out with us in all the other wonderful shows Skeptic Haven produces. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thanks to our production team for getting this together, the last minute fill-ins and the tech issues and so forth. They do the best job. And thank you for coming, because without the community, what are we even doing here? Would you like to say goodnight, Patty?
Sure. Good night, and thank you so much, Skeptic Haven, and thank you, Ember, for coming in here. It was so nice to have this conversation with you. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
This is Skeptic Haven. Let's talk.